guys, it is Aoife from Fradbc Date Laughing, and I'm here with my last September weekly wrap up of 2016. So I got to read 5 books this week and I can't wait to tell you all about them. Most of them were pretty good. And the first book that I finished this week, which I was just starting last week, was Blame by Simon Mayo. This is kind of, I can't say it's dystopian because it's not too far away in the future, but it's this new kind of England where people are basically punished for the crimes of their family. It's called heritage crime. So basically if your mum and dad have done something really bad, or if they have, say, like robbed a bank and gotten away with it, or murdered someone, you end up doing time in prison if they can't do it themselves. And it's about a girl called Ant and her brother Matty, and both of them are in this prison because of something their parents have done, and their parents were never caught. Their parents ran away and left them, and they are in prison, and it's just kind of how the prison system works and how Ant gets around it. She's pretty cool, and it's just really enjoyable. It was really enjoyable read. It was really different. It's probably a bit weird to say, but I say people who like Orange is the New Black would probably like this, because it is that kind of prison system, and it's how kind of Ant gets along with certain guards, how she's able to kind of play them a little bit. She's very human towards the guards, and she kind of just casually chats to them and kind of gets to know them and becomes friends with them. So she then ends up kind of being able to get favours from them for different things. I just thought this was really well thought out. It was really well written. It's just something completely different to what I've read before. Both Matty and Ant are biracial as well, and they talk a lot in their mother's language, which is Haitian Creole, I think. But they kind of talk to each other now and again if they're reassuring each other, or if they're kind of speaking late at night, maybe like a little lullaby or something, they start speaking Haitian Creole to each other, and it's just really beautiful, and I really enjoyed those parts. It's really human, and it really shows Ant is a very tough character. She has tattoos, shaved head, and she's kind of the leader of the pack, and she's kind of the one that goes and gets things done. And has to be the tough girl all the time. But then there's these moments with her brother where she shows that she's actually just a real softie underneath it all, and she just wants to go somewhere where she and her brother can have a nice life together. And I just really enjoyed this book, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And I should say I also got this sent to me by Penguin Random House Ireland as well. But this is just absolutely brilliant. I really loved it, and I would definitely tell people to give it a go. The next book that I finished was my September TBR jar pick, and it was Witches of the East by Melissa de la Cruz. This is about a family of witches, and it's just about their life in this little kind of sleepy fishing town, and just the different things that they're doing. And then all this dark stuff kind of starts happening, and they're trying to figure out what is going on and how to save all the people that they live with every single day, and how to save their friends, and, you know, come out of it looking okay on the other side as well. I have watched the TV show of this. It had 2 seasons before it got cancelled, and I really enjoyed it. And for the most part, this really does follow along with the first season. There was one bit, because there was an ant in the TV show who I really loved, but she wasn't actually in the book, and I actually was a bit sad about that because she was one of my favourite characters in the TV show, and she wasn't in the book. But for the most part, the rest of the story went the same. I thought for like kind of a supernatural, paranormal-esque story, the writing in this was really good. I really kind of felt for the girls. I really kind of got their struggles, and I really connected with them in a way. I do wonder if some of the stuff that I already knew because of the TV show, like where they were from, why they were like on Earth, why they were kind of cursed to kind of live life over and over again. They can't really die properly. They kind of are reborn if they die. And there's all these different things around their family and their dad and all this kind of stuff. I kind of wonder if I would have gotten it as much if I hadn't watched the TV show, because obviously I do know, so I do kind of knew the story even before I went into it, and I don't know if it would have been as easy to follow along for someone who had no idea who was going into this blind. I did really enjoy this for the most part, and I gave it a 3.5 stars. The next book I read was a NetGalley book, and that was Dancing in the Rain by Lynn Joseph. This is a really beautiful children's book, kind of middle grade-esque book I think, and it is about 2 different children, Elizabeth and Brant is living in New York and Elizabeth in the Dominican Republic, and it's set around the time of the September 11 attacks in New York, and it's kind of how both of these families, Elizabeth's family and Brant's family, are both suffering from the after effects of the attacks. And Brandt ends up moving with the rest of his family to Dominican Republic, and they meet Elizabeth, and it's just kind of this really kind of magical, emotional little read. There's a little bit of magic realism in it, and it's just about Brandt and Elizabeth basically trying to find a way to make their families happy again, and it's just really, really touching, and it was really endearing, and I really, really enjoyed it. It was a really quick read. I read it in 2 sittings, and I think if I had started reading it earlier, the day I read the first bit of it, I probably would have finished it in one go. It only takes about 2 to 3 hours to read, I say, in one chunk, but it was really, really gorgeous. The writing just flowed really, really well for me. It was quite lyrical and musical, as I said, and there was a scene at the very, very end where I just felt like crying because it was just so beautiful and it was so emotional, and it just felt like everything had kind of come together in a really, really nice way, and I just really enjoyed it, and I would definitely recommend people to read this book because it was really good. So this was a 4.5 star book for me, and I really enjoyed it. So beautiful. I would really recommend it for everyone. I finished an audiobook this week, and it was Farenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. I've been wanting to read this book for a while because it is kind of a modern classic. I've heard quite a lot about it, and like, I'm glad I listened to it, but I don't know, I just don't think this book was really for me. It is basically set in this dystopian future where books are banned, people don't read anymore, people are they have these kind of radio / TV things that they listen to all the time and they become immersed in. And it's about a guy called Montag who is a fireman, but instead of putting out fires, he actually starts fires. So firemen find people who have books hidden, and they go to the house and they burn the books and they burn the house down, and the people are arrested. So that is what Montag does, and he basically meets this girl one day, this young girl, and she just kind of starts questioning him, and she kind of makes him think about things for the first time in his life, and he ends up kind of stealing books then from some of his jobs, and eventually he ends up having to go on the run. And it's just kind of his thoughts and how this all kind of comes about, and like I got most of it, but I didn't get all of it, and there were just some parts of it where I just kind of lost concentration for a while. I felt like the television sets were like, whatever way it was really, really confusing. I could never really get my head around what they were, because his wife, Montag's wife, is like obsessed with them and watches them basically all day, and it's all her and her friends talk about. They're very, very vacant people, and I don't know, I was so confused about it. I just didn't quite get it. This book wasn't very relaxing to listen to either. It was a really shouty audiobook because there's a lot of like high intense moments in it where, you know, Montag is on the run or something panicky is happening, and the narrator did bring that across really, really well. So I gave this 3 stars in the end, just because I could appreciate the writing, I could appreciate the world and what had gone into it, but as a classic, it just wasn't one for me. Last book that I finished this week, I finished just a couple of hours ago, and that was Stealing Snow by Danielle Paige. This is again another book I got from NetGalley, and Danielle Paige, I think, wrote the Dorothy Must Die series, but I actually haven't read them, so this is my first experience of her writing, and this one is about a girl called Snow who is living in a kind of mental health asylum, and she basically tried to walk through a mirror when she was younger, and she's been kept in this kind of asylum for basically her entire childhood, and then one day her friend, who is kind of like her boyfriend, kind of the guy she loves, is taken away, and then she ends up finding a way into this other world through this tree, and she ends up figuring out that she is like the princess of this other world, and she has these magical powers where she can kind of control snow, and it kind of goes from there. And this book, like, it had everything that I should have really, really loved, but it just didn't quite get there for me. Like, it had so much potential, and I was like really kind of, at times I was really impressed with the story, and I could tell that it was a good story, but I just wasn't that invested in it, and it made me feel a little bit slumpy. I didn't read it for a couple of days. I started reading something else, and I just wasn't that like I don't know, I just wasn't invested in the story. I wasn't connecting with any of the characters. Don't particularly like Snow as a character. She isn't that nice. She's a little bit judgy of everyone. It's kind of one of those stories where she keeps flitting to different kind of groups of people, and we can never really tell which group of people are like the people she should be trusting and who are her friends. And then she tends to like to forget about the people who she's kind of become friends with, and she meets this other group of people and becomes friends with them, and you're kind of like, but what about these other people who risked their life to save you and stuff like that? And it's just a bit like all over the place like that. And it does kind of feel like it was kind of like taking elements of different kind of tales that we already know. Like obviously she's Snow, she's a kind of a Snow White retelling in a way. Then there's her kind of trying to go through the mirror, like Alice through the looking glass, and then I just felt the whole Snow thing in general was very much the Snow Queen, and I just kind of felt like there was so much in this book that was pulling from different stories, which I usually quite like, but for some reason I kept kind of feeling like I'd read the story before, and it kind of just confused me a little bit. I found now and again my attention would drift for a few seconds while I was reading, and then something would happen. I'd be like, wait, how did we get there? Like, when did this happen? And I'd have to kind of skip back and figure out where exactly my attention span had lapsed. And that happened a few times in the book, and that normally never happens to me. But it did happen with this one. But I do feel like the story is there. I think for me it just didn't connect. Yeah, so I gave it a 3 stars. It's kind of like a barely there 3 maybe, but I gave it a 3 stars, and I think this is the first book in a series. Oh, I should say, it seemed to end really abruptly as well. It was just like all this stuff happened, and then it was just over, and I was just like, oh god, okay, like it kind of went from the last line, and then this page after that was the acknowledgements, and I was like, wait, I had to go back, and I was like, oh, okay, that's it then, I guess. So yeah, so 3 stars, though I would recommend it for people who like these kind of stories. It just wasn't one for me, I think, so that was unfortunate, but hopefully other people will like it a bit better. I also forgot to mention a book that I finished kind of like reading on my phone this week, which I've been reading over the past few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, and it was Even If the Sky Falls by Mayo Garcia, and we can all take a moment to appreciate the beautiful cover in this book. It's stunning. This book is about a girl called Julia who is in New Orleans. She's kind of in this group that's helping to rebuild houses, and she ends up going off one day and kind of falling into the Mardi Gras parade, and she meets this boy, and they end up kind of connecting really instantly and having this wild night of just adventures and fun and stuff like that. This book was a little bit hard to stomach sometimes. There's a little bit of insta love. It just wasn't very realistic. I couldn't quite believe the story. It was cute. It was really cute most parts, like these 2 kids who were just like really attracted to each other. I feel like this book would make a really, really good movie. But for me, there wasn't just enough kind of proper substance to it really for a book that I could really, really enjoy. It was a bit of a meh kind of book, and I gave it a 2.5 stars. It is the 2nd day of October. I will pick out my pick for the October TBR jar. I did try and read the other book that I picked out in September, which was Aurora Sky Vampire Hunter, but it was really bad, and after a chapter I decided to DNF it because I knew that I wasn't going to like it. It was one of those ones I got from Free Book Friday anyway, so I probably shouldn't have expected anything more from it, but I think if maybe I was like 12 or 13 I probably would have liked it, but definitely not now, so I didn't even give it that much of a chance. I gave it 1 chapter and then I was like, no, I'm not going to read anymore. So the book I have picked out is The Coldest Girl in Cold Town by Holly Black. I've been wanting to read that one for a while, so I'm really happy about this, and it's probably actually a good one to read for October as well, so I'm looking forward to that. So that is everything I've read this month. Please let me know what you guys think, leave a comment down below, and like if you like the video, and thank you for watching. I'll see you guys again next time. Bye!